Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. This is Kelsey here today with Dan Simpkins, who's the CEO at Dwellwell. Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So Dan, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, great. So I started my career as an electrical engineer. I made a transition to entrepreneurship early in my career. And I actually have this interesting way of thinking about entrepreneurship. I have a saying that you have to go over the line to see the line. So in other words, you actually have to enter the world of science fiction and imagine a different future. And so throughout my career, I've actually looked at the world through a different lens. And I've looked for lines to cross to affect positive change.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about a line to cross, tell me a little bit about Dwellwell.
All right. So we actually had an interesting origin story. So I have a second home. A number of years ago, that home had two frozen pipes that thawed when we weren't there. The home flooded. We actually got a call from a housekeeper who said, I arrived at the house and water was coming out the front door. That's not a good day. That's not a good day. And at the time, I had expertise in sensors and systems and AI. And my co-founder and I started to think about how we could apply that technology to this problem of residential maintenance. And so consequently, I actually made an interesting observation that there are several 100 million cars on the road in the US. All of them have a check engine light. And what that check engine light does is tell us what's going wrong, hopefully before we get stuck on the side of the road. But none of our homes have a check engine light. And so we thought to ourselves, why not make a check engine light for residential properties? And so that's what we did. That's what Dwellwell is.
I love that. So tell me a little bit more about this check engine light for Dwellwell.
All right. So if we take a step back and think about what are we trying to accomplish, for the most part, all of maintenance is reactive. We don't fix something until it breaks. We generally don't know that something is going to break until it stops working. And interestingly, yesterday I was sitting here in my office, and which is in my house, and my washing machine is just over there. And I heard it making a strange beeping sound. And I went over and saw an alarm on it, an error message. And basically it was filled with water and it was not emptying, right? And so now you have to take action. And so what was the idea of the check engine light? It's for us to be able to monitor all of the major systems in a home, HVAC, so heating and cooling, plumbing, appliances, and even structure. And for us to be able to take information in about all of those major systems and understand what is happening, what is the context, in order to give the owners of the properties information to help them better maintain them, to essentially avoid having things suddenly fail and having a repair person have to rush out and make a repair. And in particular, one of the big drivers was to convert unscheduled maintenance to scheduled maintenance. Right? And so that ultimately saves cost. So the purpose of the check engine, very simply, is to provide information in order to transform how maintenance is done on residential properties.
Talking about residential properties, can Dwellwell be used in, apartment complexes, hotels? Talk to me a little bit about the scope of Dwellwell.
Yeah. So our customers are institutional owners of residential real estate.
Okay.
So essentially, we're what's called a B2B, a business to business. supplier. And the reason we want to sell B2B is as a startup that enables us to achieve scale more easily. And so we have two key customers, the multifamily customers. So those are apartment owners. And we have the institutional owners of residential real estate. Starting in the economic downturn in 2008, we saw corporations purchase residential real estate, homes, individual homes, and then refurbish those homes and then rent them. And that is becoming a fairly significant growth sector. We're seeing a tremendous amount of new home construction in that area. So those are the two main customers. They're institutional owners of single family homes, institutional owners of multifamily or apartments.
And how did COVID affect the company?
So we are, as you could tell, I'm in my home office. We actually are running our business remotely with we're a distributed company. We started the company in the middle of 2018, so it was pre-COVID, but we were just doing early systems engineering, and we began to develop the product in earnest, really starting in the beginning of 2020. So just as COVID kicked off. But because we had put the company together remotely, we, from an operating standpoint, didn't really have tremendous effect. Of course, it affected our investors. Obviously, people were concerned about the economic environment, and so there was impact there. What it also, though, did was it helped our customers understand how a remote monitoring system would benefit them. That's particularly valuable because if you can't go into your customer's home, then how do you maintain it? Right? And so we also found a tremendous amount of interest on a remote monitoring technology to reduce the impact of the maintenance staff on individual residents.
That was my thought exactly, because I was thinking to myself, specifically during the time of COVID and quarantine, people didn't necessarily, want to be engaging with people that they couldn't, that they didn't know in their close immediate family in their home. So I was thinking, the demand of Dwellwell, I can imagine, was even more clear. And, even as we move out of the time of COVID, that's been very, I don't want to say beneficial, but it has helped, the company.
It has, in particular, where it's really interesting is obviously in the single family rental space where there are scatter sites. As it is, our customers only touch those houses once or twice a year. They don't know what's happening in the house until a resident calls and files a complaint or says something's broken. And then they have to deal with getting maintenance personnel into the home to address it. And with COVID, that just scheduling, and first of all, not only was scheduling difficult, but just getting the right resources was difficult. And so having a technology that optimizes the process, that essentially uses data to deliver insights, this was a big benefit. So we like to call our product a data-driven diagnostic platform. We are collecting data, and we are then using that data to create insights that maintenance personnel can use to properly repair it. And the more information they have about what's happening, the easier the maintenance process, the less time it takes, the fewer visits they have to make because they know what they're dealing with as soon as they arrive. All of those things in this era of COVID have created benefits.
So Dan, what would be a problem that Dwellwell is able to solve for your customers?
I would probably want to start with a big picture view. Today, maintenance of residential buildings is a $100 billion problem. One of the CEOs of the largest, or one of the largest multifamily operators told me that his costs are going up 5 to 10% a year, unbounded. And so what we set out to do was build a technology that would take a bite out of that chunk, would help bring technology to the maintenance process to ultimately improve operating efficiency, which basically flows right to the bottom line for our our institutional residential operators.
Yeah, I imagine too, it takes the problem solving cycle, it cuts down that length because it's clear what the issue is for the repair, correct?
Yes, that is one of the objectives. In the early part of the product, we're still only looking at high level, so we can give a big picture view. But for example, there's an interesting observation that one of our customers made that I think is a good example for this. These are customers that are in the South, and they often, to save money, the customers would turn off the air conditioning during the day. And then they would come home and they would say, my house is too hot. They would turn the air conditioner on, but it took a long time for the home to cool off. And they would say, my house is too hot, the air conditioner is broken. And over time, the customers discovered that, well, wait a minute, the air conditioner is being turned off during the day. Our product immediately provides that insight because we give the facilities manager information about runtime. When is the system running? And if it's running, and not only when is it running, but is it running efficiently? So not only can we tell, hey, the system wasn't running during the day because it was turned off, but we could say, and this system is not quite as efficient as other homes, so it's taking even longer for it to cool down when the resident comes home. So we're able to then provide significant insights to improve the resident experience.
So talking about being able to improve that resident experience and give feedback to, these companies, what would you say are some other ways that you're able to stand out from your competition?
There are really three distinct ways that we're different from our competitors. The first is that we're the only system that monitors the whole home simultaneously. So we're a whole home solution. Many of the other, so you may have heard the term IoT, does that, which for your listeners is Internet of Things, right? Internet connected sensors, for example, are IoT devices. And there are many products now in the residential market for different functions. There are temperature sensors or humidity sensors or HVAC or electrical. These products are siloed. In many cases, they're over-engineered as well. They go very deep for a particular domain because they want to deliver value in that singular domain. We felt it was important to deliver a capability that would monitor the entire home simultaneously, not just individual silos. And so that's the first differentiator. We're doing HVAC, plumbing, appliances, and structure all comprehensively. The second thing is that we're plug and play. And so I will actually hold up for some of the listeners. This is one of our sensors. It just plugs into an outlet and it starts to collect data across a wide range of different sensor domains. It does environmental sensing, it does electrical sensing, etc. And so because we just plug it in, the customers then can run through a simple installation application and within a short period of time have the product up and running and delivering information that's of value. So the second differentiator is the plug and play. We don't have to cut pipes. We don't open up the circuit breaker box. We don't take the cover off of the heat pump. We just plug it in and go. The third thing is that the sensor really is multi-functional. So what we are doing is using one sensor to cover multiple things simultaneously. And so the way we think about it is you're instrumenting the home, you're instrumenting the building, not the equipment. And so we are, so this sensor, we could put it in a bedroom, we could put it in a bathroom, we could put it in a kitchen, a utility room.
Yeah.
It's the same device that goes everywhere. So it makes it very easy to manage, and it also makes it easy to service.
So is there only one plug that's needed to monitor an entire home?
We put one device in for roughly every 300 to 400 square feet.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I was going to say, how that's an amazing piece of technology. So it makes sense to have a few points, the larger the space, making sure that you're able to cover that whole home, approach that you use.
Right. Exactly. So it scales with the size of the building. The other thing that's makes us significantly different than our competitors versus those three key things is that it's the AI. So we are a true AI system. Now, AI gets thrown around a lot. People don't understand what AI is. In some ways, AI is simple. It's software that takes data and interprets the data in a meaningful way. So you could use AI to do face recognition, right, for security, or you could use AI to do speech recognition for Alexa or Google Home for a control function, right? For us, we're in taking in data about the home, data that isn't about the people, it's about the building. We're taking temperature, we're taking indoor air quality, we're taking electrical signals. We're taking a variety of different types of data, and we're using it to feed an AI system. So basically a piece of software that tells when something has changed that needs to be addressed.
So Dan, you talked a little bit about the importance of having early adopters to start using that type of technology. Talk to me a little about once you have them, how are you planning to scale the business?
That's an important question as we think about building from startup into a more established growth-oriented company. We're using a land and expand approach. So clearly, when we go to customers, we obviously want those early adopters to buy into the product and the technology. But we're hoping that then once they've been excited about the technology, once they understand its value in one building, that they'll then move to building 2, building 3, building 4. Or in the case of the single family rental, they might start with 50 homes or 100 or a few hundred homes, but then we want them to just expand from there. And so this idea of land and expand is an important way that we're going to scale. But the only way that you could succeed with land and expand is you have to prove up front that you're delivering value. And that's where we're spending a lot of our time today with our early customers.
Yeah, interesting. That makes a lot of sense, to be able to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the Dwellwell product. So going back to that target audience, you talked about 2 different target audiences. Do you see a trend in the size of the companies or the residential spaces that you tend to see working with Dwellwell?
In any startup, you're always going to start with your early adopters. It's not really as much about size as it is their philosophy.
Okay.
Right. So the early customers that we have today are customers that saw the value of a high-tech solution to transform their maintenance processes.
Yeah.
Most of those companies, it turns out, though, are not the largest.
Okay.
They're not going to be the largest companies because the largest companies have systems and processes. They have bureaucracy, which is appropriate because they have to operate at scale. And so they generally want to see a product that is more mature and has, all of the features already been proven out before they will start to deploy it in their companies. And so generally our initial customers are going to be smaller. They will then show through case studies how the product has created value, and then the larger companies will start to adopt.
So working through that process of, those companies that see the value, working on those use cases, what are some other ways that you've been able to expand the reach of Dwellwell's name?
So of course, our approach has been through classic marketing, right? So we've gotten out there. We've done a number of podcasts like this one with different folks in the real estate area. I've used media, print media. We've done interviews with companies and media outlets that are well known in the real estate market.
Mhm.
We go to trade shows. So just last week, I was at a trade show, essentially a conference called CRE Tech, which
Yeah.
is the Commercial Real Estate Tech Conference. A few weeks before that at Blueprint in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
Next week, we're going to be at OpTech, which is a conference for the multifamily market.
Okay.
So we're trying to get out there in a variety of ways. We're
Mhm.
small. We're an early stage company.
Yeah.
But we like to think we punch above our weight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talking about, say we've got a listener who's listening who wants to get involved with Dwellwell as a customer. How would they go about starting that process?
Well, the first way to do it is to contact us. I would say the easiest way is to connect on our webpage.
Okay.
One thing I always like to do is I like to remind folks that our webpage is dwellwell.ai, not dwellwell.com. There is a dwellwell.com, but we are dwellwell.ai for that AI part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
There is a contact us. We have people routinely connect to us through our website.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is another excellent way. I'm on LinkedIn, as is my executive team, and so people have reached out to us through LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
And other, so we're on, social media in general, but I think those are the two best ways, through our website and LinkedIn.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Dan, if you were to leave our listeners with one piece of information, either about Dwellwell, about the industry, the space, what would you want to leave our listeners with?
That's a good question, because there are so many things I'd like them to go away with. I'd like them to understand that technology, that over time, the most interesting startups, the most interesting technologies are those that typically um, automate what was previously a manual process.
Mm.
And so if you think about some of the most important transitions in productivity, we are looking to use technology in a very interesting and compelling way
Mhm.
to automate, but to make the process of maintaining residential homes
Mhm.
really more efficient.
Yeah.
And we like to say that better home leads to a better life and ultimately to a better earth. And so it really starts with our homes, and we're hoping that our listeners get excited about Dwellwell and want to try and see how technology like ours would be beneficial to them.
That's great. So, Dan, I really appreciate our conversation. We had a great time talking about, this check engine light, the whole home solution and really data-driven diagnostic platforms that you're able to provide feedback and runtime to, great customers. I think it's fantastic. So, I want to thank you for being on Business Ninjas. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to getting back together at some time in the future.